There we go.
Okay, great. So yeah. Okay, great. All right, cool. We've got people jumping on. Samuel, Shayna, Jenny. Cool. Okay. Hi everyone. We thought it's Mike and Will here. And we thought we would just jump on to because we've had a lot of clients asking questions about returning to exercise after having had COVID. And so we just wanted to give our thoughts about how to do that safely, and how to do that sensibly so that you can get back into the gym and get back running and doing all the things you love as quickly as possible without becoming too run down or burnt out. So, Will, I don't know, have you had many clients asking about this to you?
Had a few that have done either a few weeks in isolation, and a couple that have had COVID and are recovering. And a thing that I have found more common with them is the deconditioning that they've had from the absence of exercise. So I've given them a few pointers in how to mitigate, or how to limit injuries from returning from isolating or having the virus.
So the actual deconditioning that comes from being in lockdown and not being able to
Yeah,
leave the house? Yeah, what
yeah.
are the main things that you've found with that? I've had quite a lot of that as well.
Um, so people, gym goers, not able to, during a normal working day, or a normal day in the life, someone would be walking around, you know, throughout their job, or whatever. And when they're having to limit that to just being in one room or their own home, they're not able to get enough, um, I guess, steps in the day. So they become very deconditioned, strength and cardio wise. So yeah,
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had some clients and they usually hit like 10 to 15,000 steps and it went down to about 700 steps a day.
yeah, yeah,
And I think some of that is unavoidable when you're locked in the house. There's only
yeah,
so many laps of
exactly,
the
yeah.
house you can do. Have there been certain body areas or things or certain stretches that you've recommended to those people as they begin to get moving again?
Stretches, probably like hip flexor stretches. If they're isolating, they're generally going to be sitting down for a lot of the time. So hip flexors, hammies as well,
Yeah.
and exercises. They could even do breathing exercises, I think, that will help, especially if they've had COVID and recovering from potential breathing difficulties.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had a few patients suffering with what we call long COVID. So, when like they've had COVID, but they've still got the shortness of breath and the fatigue going on for weeks, even though they've passed negatively on a COVID test.
Yeah.
And I have clients that I treat over in the US from our marathon team and things. So they had COVID a lot earlier. And some of them, they're all really fit people, and some of them are still having problems with energy levels and with that shortness of breath, getting back into exercise. So yeah, definitely I think the breathing is a big one. Are there any particular breathing exercises that you've found useful or that
Uh,
you'd
you,
recommend?
my favorite one would be the 3 month DNS breathing position, uh, laying on your back with your feet up, legs up 90 degrees, and concentrating on relaxing the chest, and small breaths into the lower abdomen. That's probably one of my favorite ones because it's easy. Anyone can do it, and you can do it anywhere really. Um, and it's it's an exercise that puts you in a relaxed state. It's almost like meditation.
Yeah, so you're lying on your back and you've got your legs elevated like up
Yep.
on a lounge or something at 90
Lounge,
degrees.
stool, ottoman, yeah, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for those people who don't know what DNS is, um, That's something you use a fair bit in clinic, I've seen. So tell me a bit
Yeah.
more about it.
It's the so it stands for dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. So the Prague School of Rehab have taken um, the early positions that adolescents have or babies have when they develop, and worked out how babies gain strength to get to the point from being being on your back to walking, and they've broken it down into subsections, and then adults like you and I, from doing things in day-to-day life that are quite sedentary, you can begin to lose um, the ability um, to have strength in certain positions. So these subset sort of positions help regain that strength. And a lot of it is tied into breathing. So that helps quite a lot.
Yeah, okay. So the exercise you're talking about is the one where you're lying on your back, you've got your legs elevated, and you're breathing
Yeah.
in through your lower abdomen, and you're making sure that your
Yeah.
chest isn't moving.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. And what about just like general kind of return to exercise recommendations? What have you found?
Um, just taking it easy, I guess, not going
Yeah,
too hard, because especially if you've had COVID or you've been isolating, you're not going to be as strong or as fit as you were in the preceding weeks beforehand, and y- you need to have a slow bit of a warm up, um, get the blood flowing, um, not go too hard. So even, if you're like a runner, you start out with a bit of a walk and, stay in that lower aerobic threshold, not going into the anaerobic or ATP sort of higher thresholds of energy needs.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think what I've been telling a lot of people with that is, particularly with that kind of long hauler COVID or the long term kind of return to exercise after having COVID, it looks a lot like chronic fatigue syndrome. I mean, we don't know a lot about long COVID yet, really, because
Yeah,
it's so new. But it is a really fine line between moving and, we want people moving because if they're not, then their body deconditions and then they end up with all these secondary problems. But it's a fine
yeah,
line between doing enough and not doing too much. And I have had a few patients who have gone in too hard too quickly and then actually set themselves back a bit because they've
yeah,
overexerted themselves and then their fatigue's flared up even more, or their
yeah,
shortness of breath has fatigued up a lot more. So trying to find that balance is quite hard, and I think everyone's a little bit different, which is where it's really useful having someone who can guide you through that process.
yeah.
um, and it is a bit of an art. I don't know about you, but I find it a bit of an art trying to determine with a client where that threshold is.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like threading a needle with an injury. Yeah,
totally, totally, totally. And it's very individualized, um,
definitely. Yeah,
totally different. So, yeah, definitely, I think appreciating that it might take a few weeks to kind of get back to where you were is really important, and being patient with that. Um,
yeah,
uh, I agree with you with the running. I've definitely, found similar to tell people, we want them in zone 1 to 2 heart rate or their aerobic zone where basically they could maintain a conversation the whole time while they're running. So they're not gasping for air. I think that's really, really important. And then generally just starting on exercises that are a bit less intense, so things like yoga and stretching and breathing exercises and all those things before they kind of move back into the full WODs and the full CrossFit workouts
yeah.
and the high intensity stuff. Um, yeah. What else? What else do you think is useful for people to know, considering like when they're considering getting back into exercise and those sorts of things?
Nutrition. Um, have it Staying hydrated definitely as well, especially in the heat now.
Yeah.
Um,
And what sort of things with nutrition?
Eating lots of fruits and vegetables, of course. With COVID as well, I was reading that vitamin C and as well as vitamin D. Vitamin D specifically is pretty crucial in terms of the recovery from that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely super interesting and both really important for your immune system. And I think like
Mm.
as well, I've just been telling people, avoid inflammatory foods. So avoiding
Yep.
things that, greasy foods, too much
Alcohol.
alcohol,
Yeah.
eat the rainbow, eat plenty of veg,
Yep.
eat largely plant-based, try and avoid too much dairy, try and avoid too much soy product, those kinds of things that we know that can be quite inflammatory for the body.
Yep.
Um, and then I think, I don't know about you, but I'm also finding that getting people's sleep right is really important for their
Yeah.
recovery as well. Do you
Yeah.
have any recommendations for people about sleep?
Um, Modifying screen time would be one of them. Um,
Yeah,
and monitoring caffeine intake, especially within that last sort of half of the day, beyond 3 p.m.,
yeah,
because that plays a role.
yeah. What do you generally say? Because everyone's a bit different. What are your rules in terms of screen time before bed?
Oh, I'm pretty poor. I have on all of my devices. I turn the blue light filter on, so it'll become sort of orange. And I found when I started doing that, even around 10 p.m., my eyes I start getting like quite tired, and then I can just go to bed quite easily. But um, I was reading that 4 hours before you sleep is when you should remove all white unnatural light, which I thought was a bit.
4 hours.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit too far in the 21st century. So
Yeah, that's intense. I can imagine it's true though.
yeah,
They say apparently a really good treatment for insomnia is sending people camping because it just regulates their
yeah, it would.
sleep-wake
Yeah, the
cycles.
circadian rhythm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and we should probably be having no artificial light after dark. I'm not that mean though. Generally tell people, you want to turn devices off about 60 minutes before you go to bed and find something else to do to help you
yeah,
wind down. And definitely the blue light one's really big as well. And yeah, avoiding caffeine for like 12 hours before bed.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's pretty useful. I think we've covered a lot there. Nutrition, sleep, general exercise rules, breathing, exercises. Is there anything else you want to add or final thoughts you have or you want people to know if they are suffering from long COVID or if they're getting back into exercise after having had COVID?
I would just say exercise or movement is the key. If you
Mm,
have that feeling of that malaise, sort of lethargic feeling after having COVID or isolating or whatnot, getting back into a exercise will help the body, you know, recover faster.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very underrated healing tool is movement and it
Yeah,
encourages circulation and blood flow and gets the breathing muscles moving and all of that. Um, Within reason, as we spoke about, you don't want to do too much too quickly, but figuring out ways that you can move that isn't overexerting yourself.
yeah,
And if you are having shortness of breath, also seeing what you can do to optimize perhaps muscles around the rib cage and jumping on the foam roller and all these things that they might not necessarily fix a kind of fatigue syndrome that's due to having had COVID, but that might
mm,
help still facilitate better breathing and all of those kinds of mechanics.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks. Well, I think let's just end it here. That's been really useful. I hope that's useful for clients too. If anyone has any questions, hit us up. If anyone's unsure about how best to return to the gym, let us know as well. And if you, yeah, have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, Will. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I stop?
Top right.
Oh, yeah.